And I just wanted to tell you guys, I don't talk your language, sorry. I just tell all your people, you all work very hard. Someday we can work together. And right now, I got a family shelter about to open. We plan to open on July with the public helping me. We bought the building. But now I'm ready to get some money to open up. We want to open up for 14 family and for the sick. And thanks again, everybody. You work very hard for this project. Thank you, everybody. Go to feed the people.
Thank you. Welcome the next speaker. And I would ask if folks can please line up, those of you that want to address us, makes it move a little faster. Welcome.
Hi, Dottie Russell from Southern Humboldt. So I had a number of comments to make, but also questions. And one is, if there is an area of our county that is 60 miles away that has no shelter, no emergency shelter, no housing, almost no Section 8 that's being used down there, I'd like to know what's going to happen to those people. So I think that although perhaps in Eureka there might be the issue of some resources, I think you don't want all the people that aren't getting resources in Southern Humboldt to come up to Eureka. I've kind of been told that more than once. So I think we need to put something in place also in Southern Humboldt simultaneously, so that they're not in a situation that in order to stay alive, they have to come to Eureka. For about 15 years, I've been attacked in many ways because of housing people that had barriers to housing. And in doing so, every agency on both sides has attacked us in unbelievable ways. And I've been asking at the HHHC meeting if we can in fact make a statement. All people deserve housing. Housing First really is important. It really does work. And is every single person that works for the county willing to say that people need to be housed? Because until they say this addict doesn't deserve to be housed and this person with a mental health issue doesn't deserve to be housed, then there isn't any landlord that's not going to be picked on. And that's not fair. And then I think this idea of putting it into permanent supportive housing is really great, but we need to have the shelter crisis. We need to have the sanctuary camps. We need to have those. I've worked for 15 years with these people on the streets in Southern Humboldt. I'm more than happy to add to this research that's been done by telling you case-by-case studies of people that are now housed that wouldn't have been housed if we hadn't have given them whatever tent over their head was possible. So I just want to reinforce the idea that case management is absolutely a must. If it's not going to be sent down to Southern Humboldt, if it's not going to be in Eureka, you're not going to have success. So it's just not going to happen. So you need to have that put in place right away. Stabilizing people by saying we care, by saying you don't have to leave at 8 o'clock in the morning to go out in the freezing cold or the rain, by saying, okay, you have a tent here, or you can sleep in your car.
Thank you.
It's going to stabilize people, and that's how you're going to get success.
Thank you. And just as one more note for folks who perhaps haven't addressed us before here, if people have questions, please address the board and the council, and we may, after the end of public comment, relay those questions to staff. Thanks. Welcome.
Tina Christensen. I applaud Megan, because that is what I've heard for the last 10 years of how you process the homeless. And we have not done it as a county. So it's music to my ears to stand here and say congratulations on moving forward to a solution, because that should have happened a long time ago. I do have a question on the single unit occupancy motels, because I believe that in each of the general plans we maybe didn't look at those as a source of housing. as a source of interim housing. I don't know if Megan, I haven't seen Megan's report, but that is a question. I think that there's a lot of, I don't know where the money goes at Serenity Inn, how much is charged per person, but I'm sure that there is some sort of accommodations that can be made there. I do believe in talking to a lot of the management companies from real estate, because I am in real estate, that, the proof is in you people reaching out to those management companies, because I see landlords being hesitant to come out and come forth, except for somebody like Betty Chin. She's an amazing woman with an amazing presence in our community. The other issue that I think you need to really, we all realize they're being housed or the problems are in Eureka, the majority of them. And we all see that because a lot of us work here. But Fortuna, the city of Fortuna should be here because they have issues. Willow Creek, Garverville, these are all part of Humboldt County, and they're all part of the issue. You met an hour earlier on the marijuana issue. Well, a lot of that is transient traffic from the marijuana issue. So we have a real eclectic mix of things going on, but I applaud you and move forward. And I've served on a lot of committees, and I'm willing to serve on another one because I think it's essential for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Joel McDonough. I live here in town recently.
Joel, could you get a little closer to the microphone, please?
Get the microphone a little closer to me, is that okay?
Or that, yeah.
Yeah, my name is Joel McDonough. I live here in Eureka. I've been working in Eureka for a number of years. I'm the founder and director, or former executive director of Humboldt Recovery Center here in town, which is the largest drug and alcohol treatment program in Northern California by far, and I believe the most successful. We have been for many years the primary contractor for the County of Humboldt's probation department and for California corrections here through parole for providing services. I started the program in 1972 with a board of directors that was composed of the chief of police, the county sheriff, the county director of county mental health, and others, primarily to address the issues of homelessness and public intoxication that was occurring in Old Town in that time. And any of you that have been around that remember that 2nd Street used to be the Deuce know what I'm talking about. I find it amazing that a program of the size and scope and duration of Humboldt Recovery was not contacted at all in the formulation of this plan, but we were not. I guess I'll take personal responsibility for that. I had to retire in 2012 because of illness, and that's why I moved 55 miles from where I was living on a ranch in southern Humboldt to 5 blocks away from where I worked all those years, but that's what I did. Anyway, I'm in town now. I really strongly, professionally, and personally disagree with much of what's being said. I just don't believe it. My academic background is I graduated from Stanford University a number of years ago with degrees in neuroscience, because at that point neuroscience was what addiction was about. I then went on. I'm now certified, and I think I'm the most seniorly certified person in the state of California, perhaps in the West, as a substance abuse counselor. I've been doing this forever, 42 plus years. Started with the Haight-Ashbury Clinic. I helped to put together the Stanford University's program for student drug use and alcoholism. I care about this. The other part is my personal experience, aside from my academic and professional experience. I was a drunk. I had over 300 arrests for drunk in public, which I think makes me the champion still in the county. That's a lot of 647Fs. I came by serious PTSD that I developed overseas. I was not in the military, but believe me, there's other ways of getting PTSD, including being tortured in Turkish penitentiary. I came back to the United States a wreck. I then went on to suffer horrible physical problems. I was partially paralyzed for a period of about 10 years, I could barely walk.
Joel, I'm going to give you a little bit of
Is it
time to
3
continue to
minutes?
finish up.
Okay. I can't possibly address what I want to address in 3 minutes, and I think what I have to say is worthwhile. So I'm asking that someone please take the information that I have and copy it and give it to the rest of you, and please read it before you make an action on this. If you want additional information, I can give you 40 years' worth of statistical information on homelessness and drug addiction in Humboldt County, and I'm happy to do it at any time.
Thank you.
So
And
if someone can take this.
you can hand that to our clerk. She'll make
Some of it
copies
is
for the
intended
board
to
and
be
the council.
humorous, and some of it is not. So,
Thank you. Next speaker. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Work. There's two governing parties or bodies here. I'd like to ask for additional 3 minutes, 3 minutes per. There's decisions that go. I'll be clear, concise. Anyways, here's the thing. You guys aren't really considering this, right? I mean, you can't be. I mean, okay, first of all, they're jokes. She's sitting up here, she's smiling, she's laughing, referring to me and my family in terms like grease for gears and trash and flush. Okay, first of all, that's wrong. Secondly, none of this stuff is going to work. It couldn't be any more off base. Why don't you guys come talk to us? I'll give you my number. I've asked repeatedly, come talk to me. Anybody, okay? And then summits, you want more time to figure out how to schedule something else for later on down the road. You guys are going to bulldoze my house at the end of this month, again. And there's nothing anybody can do. There's nothing I can do. There's nowhere I can go. I don't qualify for any programs here. I've tried. For 4 years, my wife's been fighting for her disability. It's a long process. A 90-day program is not going to help us. I mean, think about it. These are families, not single houses. There's groups like, they will help. They want to help. We will work with them. I promise you. There's people already out there that will. Mr. I can't remember his name. The last time he did his presentation, said he challenges someone to do better. Well, I'm his Huckleberry. I'll do it. I'll do it cheaper. I'll do it with the homeless and the pallets you guys say we're stealing that the mall gives to us. We can do this. If we can't go back, we know that. But if we can't go forward, let's just stop for a minute. Quit spinning our tires and digging the hole. Let's just stop, take our breath, and come together on this. It's not that difficult. Anti-homeless laws. There's over 150 of them in California. If two of you go down and have a burger at the mall in the food court, you're having lunch. If me and my wife go down and share a burger, we can get a ticket for food sharing because we don't have enough to buy one each. Bathing. If I wash my hands and my face in the mall bathroom without buying something, that's bathing. You go in there, you can take a full bath if you want, and that's okay because you're just cleaning up. I mean, come on, if you discriminate us, what good are we going to be? How are we ever going to feel any good? How are we ever going to do any good? We're people. We have rights. And in the meantime, these laws are being enforced. You got the cops taking our stuff, stepping all over the constitutional rights of us, like we're not people anymore, and then making jokes about how dare us complain like we're citizens. You're not treating us fairly, and then you wonder why. Well, you wonder why we're skittish? Because of this. You know what it's like to sit there and see your wife in tears, freaking out, hysterical, while the earth mover comes in there and just grabs up everything you own, which isn't much, because you're only allowed so much property, and then you got cops coming out there telling me that they can write me so many tickets, you're going to take me to jail, and I'll never get out because of the bond, and I'm a transient, no address. That's real fair, okay? I mean, you guys got to stop your approach, because if you guys aren't sending these officers out there to do it, they're doing it on their own, and someone needs to be held accountable. I mean, that's it. It's not fair, and it's not right. Anybody in the service took an oath to uphold the Constitution and defend it against tyranny, both foreign and domestic. Okay? This is tyranny. That is exactly what it is. You're telling people, if you want help, you do it this way, you do it our way. Landlord coming to us, what are you going to do? Get all the landlords together, swing by, pick up a 12-pack of homeless? It doesn't work like that.
Thank you.
It doesn't work like that, sir. You know it.
Thank you.
How dare you smile when you use terms like grease and trash to refer to me and my family?
Welcome.
Thanks. I don't know who said that, but thanks. My name is Nezzy Wade, and I've been up here a number of times earlier today talking about the shelter crisis. I first want to say to Focus Strategies and to the work on this report, thank you, because there's a lot in the report that is stuff that we have been saying for the last 2 years. And the recommendations that have been said, the interim housing, all of those things, housing first, this is what AHA has been saying. It's the definition of housing. In this case, it's a house with walls and a door you can lock and everything else. But for people who've been out in the bush, who can't make that transition easily and don't have anything else, it is affordable housing, and it is housing first, and it is getting people into a secure place. we ask about a shelter crisis because that would allow community groups like ours to step forward and do some things that we otherwise can't do. The figures that you hear about how costly it is, you heard from Rob at the City Council. That's if it's being done a different way. There are other alternatives, and I don't want you to diss them and throw them out the window. I know it's being recommended that you focus on Housing First. I want you to recognize that the Housing First covers other affordable options, like Supervisor Sundberg mentioned interim housing. There are interim housing opportunities that are not what would be considered standard traditional housing, but they are certainly workable and affordable for people who don't have any housing. So, you know, we adapt the Housing First approach countywide. We've always talked about a countywide approach and using the resource centers as a base. The infrastructure is there. It doesn't take a whole lot to extend that as a county. Intensive services are needed. That is in this report. One thing that wasn't mentioned, that I didn't hear anybody say anything about really, candidly, which is throughout this report, is harm reduction. And if you're going to get landlords and you're going to work at getting the community to work with you, you better be straight up and forward and start talking about harm reduction and what you're asking the community to do so they know what's being talked about. Because if I saw this on TV or I came in and heard what was here, I wouldn't have a clue about what, as a landlord, I'd be really asked to do perhaps in taking on the responsibilities of Housing First in that way. So people may not buy it hook, line, and sinker. I've been in city council meetings for a long time now, and I would doubt that they would take it on just easily. Anyway, we orient outreach to housing solutions, and we reduce barriers to direct housing, and we keep track of our results and have good data. So remember that there are other options out there, and I still urge you to declare a shelter crisis and get online with the city and let us help.
Thank you. Welcome.
My appreciation for this the creative process which has been presented today has grown throughout the meeting. But regarding the declaration of shelter crisis, I don't see why it wouldn't give the landlords perhaps an impetus to participate in the pathways to housing, and you know, focus and say, yeah, there's something going on and we need to help. I was also wondering about Megan mentioned HUD housing and that it's not being implemented as well as it could be. I don't understand that. We have Silvercrest, have the projects, we have central residents. So I don't know why it's not being implemented. Anyway.
Please address us with your questions.
Okay. All right. No, that's it. Basically, I came here kind of questioning why so much money was being spent, you know, when it could have been used to feed people. But I like this approach. I think it'll work.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. I'm going to read from a study that was referenced in the report. It's called Ending Homelessness for People Living in Encampments. And I think it's important to remember that we do have encampments and that people are living there and are taking care of themselves. They need help, and that's why people go and serve lunch. That's why people, you know, go and help them with moving when they need to move. But they're there, and we can't just ignore them. It is important to acknowledge that there are many reasons that some people who are unsheltered may sleep and live in encampment settings, including that such settings offer some people a greater sense of community and safety. People sleeping and living in encampments are diverse, and the housing and services interventions provided must address the range of needs, challenges, and goals. Some people may be experiencing chronic homelessness and need access to permanent supportive housing. So this study, this report, is talking about using the encampments as interim housing to then house people. And that's what I see it saying. The forced dispersal of people from encampment settings is not an appropriate solution or strategy. Accomplishes nothing toward the goal of linking people to permanent housing opportunities and can make it more difficult to provide such lasting solutions to people who have been sleeping and living in encampments. In the spring, there will be another forced movement of people from the marsh. It just has to happen. It's planned, it's going to happen, and we need to have another solution rather than just forcing them to leave. And that's why the shelter crisis is important. It can reduce those costs. Liability is a big issue. It reduces the liability. Providing basic health and safety, what is required in a house is much different than what would be required in an encampment. And so it reduces the cost of providing this type of interim housing. How much do I have? People living in encampments have a strong interest in planned efforts and outcomes, may regard the site as their home and community, and understandably expect that others will respect their privacy and personal property. Planning should assume that people are entitled to participation in decisions that will affect their lives and should seek ways to incorporate their input. I have copies for you.
Thank you. Please hand them to our deputy clerk, and she will get them to both the board and the council. Thank you. Next speaker. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. If the city and the county or the county fails to provide a space and an adequate amount of time, we will do it ourselves. The people who are concerned about this, we're just going to do it. There are abandoned houses, there are empty lots. We will take over these spaces and provide for these people who have nothing.
Thank you. Next speaker. Welcome.
Erin Powers Taylor of Eureka. The program Towards Housing First is a great and decent goal for our county and cities to work on, not just Eureka, but I think many of our other cities should be working towards this also. And I personally believe it will support a huge percentage of our vulnerable. With that being said, this will and has taken time that our houseless don't have. That is why we must allow more legal alternatives as you all continue to cut through the red tape and increase our affordable housing stock. Right now in Eureka, we are looking at the removal of about 200 people from a piece of land that many have called home, some for decades. This is the Palco Marsh. Besides the fact that the city has already increased criminalization of our houseless, which the new HUD guidelines are beginning to frown upon, which could mean slashes in money over the county that our county may receive. Eureka needs your help to give these folks and hundreds more in our area legal places for these folks to go and to be. This removal will be in about 2 months. They need somewhere to go that will not infringe on every freedom we as human beings deserve. I am down at the Palco Marsh a lot. I am an advocate for all, but these people have maybe at the most 12 weeks before they are going to be forcibly moved. And Eureka still hasn't got a place to put them. They're going to keep going towards the rest of the county. Something needs to be done. We declared a shelter crisis. Thank you for the people who have listened and can feel the heartache out there. I'm down with these folks all the time, and it is hard. They're human beings. They have their own little groups. They have their own little blocks, and we keep taking from them. This is wrong. Yes, the Housing First is great, but they still need shelter now of some sort, and even if it's a tent, that is their shelter. Give them a piece of land that they can legally be on. Right now, they're criminals. They're criminals for living. I can't understand that. So while we do this, we have to do something in between. We just have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Brandy Wilson from Humboldt Area Center for Harm Reduction. And I wanted to speak...
Could you get a little closer to the mic, please?
I wanted to speak a little bit about the proposal, and I definitely see that the low barriers to housing and the supportive housing and housing first as being what is now considered, regarding substance use, one of the most effective ways to combat homelessness and substance use together. There used to be a very hardcore intrinsic belief that abstinence-only 12-step programs and incarceration-based programs were the only thing that worked. Research shows now that that's about 5 to 8% at most once the threat is gone. What we're looking for is to create less chaotic behavior and a stable life. And the only way that starts is with a house and with support and with training how to even make basic phone calls as to how do I look for a house? How do I enroll in school? How do I enroll in WIC? How do I do these simple things? Because I don't really know. And all of the behaviors that go along with everything we're seeing only will be addressed once you give people housing. From there, wraparound services and case managers will be able to, in most cases, support people to a healthy and reintegrated life into community how they see fit. It may not be in a 2-story house with kids going to college. It might be whatever it is, but it will making people feel the best that they can about their decisions, because their decisions are only the options that they have. So if you don't like their decisions, they need more options, because that's all anyone's decisions are, is how many options we have, and options come with privilege, and not everyone has a big array of privilege to choose from. So please don't do abstinence only. Please find out what harm reduction is, and how it can be implemented, and how it can be implemented safely and humanely for everyone. And we all use harm reduction every day. We all do. So next time you put on your seatbelt, say, wow, I'm using harm reduction. Or when you walk on a sidewalk, harm reduction. So it's a good thing, and it's proven to be effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Graham Russell from Miranda. I was pleased to hear in the report several mentions of being supportive of landlords as a way to make more housing available. And I want to speak from personal experience as a landlord who's been housing people for more than the last 10 years. Many of those people would otherwise have been homeless if we had not been housing them. And I want to say that the support that we've had from the county in doing this has been minimal or non-existent. And if we want to get more landlords involved in housing people that would otherwise be homeless, the county's going to have to do a way better job. It's not only persuading landlords to take on clients, it's much more the follow-up part of the picture, the providing case managers for the people that need case management. We're located in Southern Humboldt. Southern Humboldt has so few services along those lines, and yet so many people that need those services. We need to get a focus on case management so that you don't lose landlords. I mean, I've spoken to the supervisors before on this subject, and I've said we're going to say no from now on until the county support is significantly better. And we've been having to do this support for housing